In 2025, something strange happened, not all at once, not loudly, but often enough that scientists began to pause and look twice. Objects entered our solar system without a clear origin. Creatures evolved in ways that felt almost theatrical. Galaxies that should exist don't, and parts of reality we assume were universal turned out not to be. A color no human had ever seen before was suddenly visible, but only to a few. Some people realized they'd lived their entire lives without a voice inside their head and never knew that was unusual. 2025 didn't give us answers. It gave us fractures, cracks in what we thought we understood about space, nature, history, and even ourselves. Tonight, we're not chasing aliens or conspiracy theories. We're tracing the moments when science itself hesitated. When researchers quietly admitted something here doesn't fit. This is a collection of discoveries, anomalies, and unsettling observations from a single year. A year that made one thing clear: reality is still unfinished. I'm Jane, and this is LilWeird. Welcome back to LilWeird, a little corner of the universe where we linger on the strange, the unexplained, and the questions that refuse to sit still. This is Night 10 of our 12 Weird Nights mini-series. Not quite at the end, but close enough that the air feels different. It was meant to be a year-ender, a quiet closing of the year, but the holidays happened and life happened. Time slipped the way it always does. And that's right, around here we don't rush curiosity. We return to it when we're ready. So tonight, we pick up right where we left off with questions open, wonder intact, and the strange is still waiting for us. If you're new here, welcome. And if you've been listening since night 1, thank you for staying curious with me. Take a breath, get comfortable. Tonight, we're exploring the discoveries of 2025 that made science hesitate. Moments when reality felt thinner, stranger, and a little less certain than we'd like to admit. When we think about space, we often imagine it as a distant and orderly. Planets keeping to their lanes, stars doing what stars have always done, but every now and then, something wanders in and reminds us that the universe doesn't always follow our expectations. Toward the end of 2025, astronomers noticed something quietly moving through our solar system. It was given the name Three-Eye Atlas. And right away, it raised a familiar kind of curiosity because this object didn't come from here. It arrived from interstellar space, a traveler passing through our cosmic neighborhood from another star system entirely. At first, scientists assumed it was a comet. That would make sense. Comets are icy, dramatic, and usually very obvious about what they are. But Three-Eye Atlas didn't quite play along. As it moved closer to the sun, astronomers expected to see a glowing tail, a spray of gas and dust caused by melting ice. But instead, there was nothing. No tail, no clear out gassing, just a quiet object moving steadily along. That doesn't mean anything mysterious is happening, but it does mean we don't fully understand what kind of object it is. Is it unusually dry? Is it rocky rather than icy? Or is it something shaped by conditions far different from those in our own solar system? What really caught scientists' attention wasn't just this one object, but the fact that this wasn't the first time we'd seen something like it. Interstellar visitors were once thought to be incredibly rare. Now we're starting to notice more of them, and that raises a quiet, intriguing question. Are these objects becoming more common, or are we finally getting better at noticing what's always been there? Either way, it's a gentle reminder that our solar system isn't sealed off. It's part of a much bigger conversation happening across the galaxy. And sometimes, the strangest discoveries in space aren't about visitors at all, but about things that never quite came to be. In 2025, astronomers confirmed the existence of a structure they nicknamed Cloud 9. Officially, it's known as a reionization limited hydrogen cloud, which already sounds like something from a science fiction novel. Cloud9 contains gas. It contains dark matter. It has the ingredients needed to form stars. And yet, it never did. No stars, no glowing galaxy, just a quiet, invisible structure drifting near a neighboring galaxy. Scientists describe it as a failed galaxy, a cosmic structure that began forming in the early universe but somehow stalled before the first stars ignited. It's like finding the foundation of a house that was never built. Proof that even in the universe, not everything that can happen actually does. Discoveries like Cloud9 gently challenge one of our long-held assumptions that if you give the universe enough material, it will always find a way to make stars. Apparently, the universe sometimes changes its mind. These stories remind us that space isn't just vast. It's full of expectations. With stars that don't behave as expected, galaxies that never quite begin, and quiet clues that tell us we're still very much in the learning phase. And as strange as that may sound, it only gets more interesting when we come back home to the planet where life itself has been getting wonderfully, unsettlingly creative. After looking up at the cosmos, it's tempting to think that the strangest things must be happening far away from us. But in 2025, it reminded us of something important. You don't need to leave the Earth to encounter truly strange science. Sometimes, nature gets weird right in front of us. In 2025, researchers documented a new species of caterpillar with a habit that feels a little intense. It's been nicknamed the bone collector. And once you hear what it does, you'll understand why. This caterpillar builds itself a kind of armor, not from leaves, not from silk, but from the discarded body parts of insects. Heads, exoskeletons, remnants of its prey, carefully stacked onto its back like a moving monument to survival. While a related species was already known for this behavior, this 2025 discovery stood out because of the complexity of its construction. The caterpillar doesn't just collect debris, it arranges it deliberately. It creates a disguise that helps it blend in among other insects. It's kinda unsettling, yeah, but it's also a reminder that evolution isn't interested in elegance, only in what works. Nature doesn't care if something looks creepy. If it helps you survive, it's a success. And then there's a story that feels less like biology and more like performance art. In 2025, researchers connected oyster mushrooms to bioelectrical sensors attached to robotic arms. These sensors translated the mushroom's natural electrical signals into movement, allowing the fungi to strike piano keys, guide paint brushes, and even generate rhythmic sound. In some experiments, the resulting output resembled spoken word poetry. In others, abstract paintings, created not by human hands, but by fungal impulses. The mushrooms aren't thinking in the way humans do, but their internal signals, usually invisible to us, suddenly became expressive. It blurred the line between biology and machine, between organism and interface, and it gently challenged the idea that creativity belongs only to the brains like ours. Around the same time, scientists revisited an old idea that had long been treated with skepticism, that animals might sense environmental changes before we do. Using GPS tracking and pattern analysis, researchers observed animals suddenly changing behavior ahead of earthquakes and volcanic activities. No predictions, no warnings, just quiet collective movement, as if something in the environment had shifted before we noticed. It raises a comforting thought, really, that life on Earth is paying attention in ways we're still learning to recognize. And as fascinating as these biological oddities are, the strangest questions of 2025 didn't stop with animals or fungi. Some of them turned the spotlight back on us, on how we think, how we perceive, and what it means to experience reality. After all the strange things happening out there in space and all the creativity unfolding here on Earth, 2025 offered a different kind of surprise. One that didn't arrive as a discovery but as a reconsideration. A reminder that sometimes science doesn't move forward by finding something new, but by realizing we may have misunderstood where we are. For years, astronomers have been puzzling over a problem known as a Hubble tension. Depending on how you measure it, the universe appears to be expanding at different speeds. It's not small disagreement either. It's one of those inconsistencies that quietly nags at scientists, the kind that suggests something important is missing. In 2025, one proposed explanation gained attention not because it was flashy, but because it was strangely simple. What if the issue isn't the measurement at all? What if it's our location? The idea is this. Our galaxy may be sitting inside a local void, a vast region of space with far less matter than average. Imagine standing in a wide empty clearing while everything else lies far beyond the trees. From where you're standing, it might look like everything is rushing away, even if globally it isn't. If Earth really is inside such a cosmic low density zone, it could explain why distant galaxies appear to be speeding away from us faster than expected. In other words, the universe might not be acting strangely. We might just be standing in an unusual place. There's nothing dangerous about this idea. No impending cosmic doom, no existential alarm bells. And yet, it feels deeply unsettling because it quietly shifts our perspective. We're not just observers trying to map the universe from a neutral position. We're participants embedded in it, influenced by where we happen to be. It reminds us that even in cosmology, context matters, and that sometimes the biggest questions aren't about what the universe is doing, but where we're standing when we try to understand it. There's something oddly comforting about that thought that uncertainty doesn't mean failure, it means we're still learning. And just as space continues to surprise us, so does the past. Because in 2025, history reminded us that it still has secrets, and it's not done revealing them yet. We often think of history as something settled, names memorized, dates agreed upon, stories neatly wrapped and shelved, but every so often, the past reminds us that it's still incomplete. Not forgotten, just waiting. In 2025, marine archaeologists working off the coast of Egypt uncovered something quietly thrilling, the remains of a submerged port near Tapusiris Magna. At first glance, it doesn't sound dramatic. Stone blocks, collapsed structures, the familiar silence of ruins underwater, but this port may have once served one of the most famous and elusive figures in history, Cleopatra. For centuries, the location of Cleopatra's tomb has been one of archaeologists' greatest unanswered questions. Not because of lack of interest, but because coastal shifts, earthquakes, and rising seas have slowly erased the map. The discovery of this port strengthens the idea that royal complex may lie nearby, hidden not by time alone, but by water. It's not a solved mystery. There is no tomb yet, no gold, no inscriptions, no final confirmation. Just the quiet feeling that we're closer than we were before. And sometimes, in archaeology, that's everything. And then, there are discoveries that feel less like a mystery novel and more like a strange ecological coincidence until you realize how much is actually at stake. In 2025, researchers confirmed something unexpected. The ebony trees used to make high-end guitars and violins rely most entirely on elephants to survive. Ebony seeds don't germinate easily. They need to pass through an elephant's digestive system, where the tough outer coating is softened before they can grow. No elephants means no dung. No dung means no new ebony trees. And without ebony trees, the instruments we associate with music, jazz, classical, rock, quietly begin to disappear. It's a strange chain of connection. Heavy mammals, dense forests, and delicate melodies. A reminder that culture doesn't exist separately from nature. Even our art depends on ecosystems, working the way they're meant to. These stories remind us that history isn't static, it's layered, submerged, interconnected in ways we don't always notice. Sometimes the past hides beneath the sea, sometimes it moves through forests on four slow, powerful legs. And just when you think the mysteries are all out there, in space, in nature, in ancient ruins, the strangest questions of all turn back toward us. What if reality depends on how we experience it? After everything we've talked about tonight, strange visitors in space, creatures with unsettling survival strategies, forgotten histories rising back to the surface, 2025 offered one final reminder. Sometimes the strangest discoveries aren't about the world around us, but about the way we experience it. In 2025, scientists announced something quietly extraordinary, a color, one that had never existed in human experience before. Not a new shade of blue, not a clever illusion, but a color that simply doesn't appear in nature under normal conditions. Using a highly controlled laser setup, researchers stimulated individual cells in the human retina, bypassing the usual rules of vision. And for a brief moment, a few participants saw something no one else could. They describe it as an impossibly vivid blue-green, more saturated than anything they'd ever encountered. A color that couldn't be photographed, couldn't be painted, couldn't even be properly described. It existed only in the mind, which raises a quiet question. How much of reality is shaped not by what exists, but by what our senses allow us to notice? Around this time, another realization made its way into public conversation, one that surprised a lot of people. Not everyone has an inner voice. No running commentary, no voice narrating thoughts, no internal dialogue saying, I should do this or that was awkward. Some people think in images, others in sensations, others in abstract concepts that never take the shape of words. And many people didn't realize this difference existed until they heard someone else describe a completely different inner world. There's no consensus on what's normal, no hierarchy of thought, just different ways of being aware. It quietly challenges the assumption that we all experience consciousness in roughly the same way. Taken together, these stories suggest something subtle but deeply important. Reality isn't just something we observe, it's something we interpret, filter, experience through bodies, senses, and minds that were never meant to be identical. A color unseen by most, a voice absent in some, entire inner worlds we'll never fully access. And maybe that's not a flaw. Maybe it's a part of what makes reality endlessly strange and endlessly human. As we close this night and slowly approach the end of this series, it's worth remembering science doesn't always give us certainty. Sometimes it gives us humility. And that quiet comfort of knowing we're still learning how to see. And that brings us to the end of Night 10, a night filled with strange discoveries, quiet questions, and gentle reminders that certainty is a little overrated. If you enjoyed this episode, you can follow LilWeird on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss the next night of the series. If something here made you pause, smile, or look at the world a little differently, feel free to share this episode with someone you think might enjoy it too. You can also leave a rating or a short review. It really does help the show find its way to other curious minds. And if you'd like to support LilWeird, you'll find the links in the show notes, including ways to help keep this little corner of weirdness alive and growing. Thank you for spending the night with me, for listening closely, for staying curious. We'll continue this journey soon as we move toward the final nights of the series. Until then, stay curious and remember, the universe isn't finished explaining itself. Thanks for listening.